The Great Schism was a split or separation between the Eastern and Western Christian churches. This took place in 1054 AD, during the time known as medieval times or the Dark Ages. The Christian church had unfalteringly survived a millennium of turmoil by 1000 AD. The Roman Empire had collapsed about 500 years before and had given way to a mixture of regional governments and barbarians. None of these people had Rome's capability to cohesively build the structure of modern society. Europe began to fall apart. This was especially real in the western part of the empire, where Latin was the dominant language. The eastern part was where the Greek language was the dominant language. The West rapidly lost fine arts, education, decent living standards, and formal religious consistency. Hence this time is called the Dark Ages. In the east, the ruins of the empire continued for a time grounded at Constantinople. This was so because Constantine moved the empire's government there. By the time the West crumbled, the surviving part was known as the Byzantine Empire. This empire was intentionally placed to protect Europe from a possible invasion by Mohammedans, that is, Islam. But finally it went broke and was taken over by the Venetians, who ultimately fell to the Ottoman Empire in 1453 AD. The Ottoman Empire was a regal state that was founded in 1299 AD after growing out of the breakdown of several Turkish tribes. Holy Roman Empire. The only unifying force in Europe over the next half a century was the Church itself. The Church, with its seat of government resting firmly with the Pope, preserved a very Roman order while it could. However, the real capital behind this new European order was the Germanic peoples. For almost a millennium, from 962 AD to 1806 AD, the Roman head of state was also Rex Romanorum, who is known as the King of the Romans. This began with Charlemagne, the king of the Franks, who conquered Italy and was given the title Romanorum Imperator Augustus, which means August Emperor of the Romans. This happened partly because he had just taken over Italy and they wanted to stay on his good side, and partly because they considered whoever controlled Western Europe should rightly inherit the title once held by the true Roman Empire. This made Charlemagne a direct enemy of the Byzantine Empire, but in a decade it too would acknowledge him as an emperor. He is usually referred to as Charles the Great in English. After a century of disquiet, the German Otto I took control of Europe in 962 AD. He was crowned Roman Emperor by the Pope, and therefore became the first German Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. This continued until Napoleon forced the Emperor Francis II to resign and ruin the empire, which means freeing all inhabitants from its laws. Therefore, midway between the fall of Rome, 410 AD, and the fall of Constantinople, 1453 AD, came the biggest upheaval the Church had known until that point. It marked the split of the Western Church from the Eastern Church in Europe. It is a split which has never been repaired. This split is known as the Great Schism. Western Church. After the fall of the Roman Empire, the Germanic tribes spread out into Western Europe. They established in three major regions: Italy, Gaul or France, and Britannia. As an outcome, the Western Church became Germanic, although the Latin language and literature remained the main language. This marks a major turn in the Church's history. This was sure to remain in the Church for centuries to come. Eastern Church. Between the fall of Rome and the turn of the first millennium, the Arab nations had successfully annexed Egypt, Palestine, and Syria for Islam, but the remainder of the Eastern Church survived. Although it was weakened, the dominant Greek language and culture remained. The Church therefore became known as the Greek Orthodox Church. Despite its conditions, the Eastern Church had produced some scripturally influential people. Clement of Alexandria, Athanasius, and Origen would be the most famous examples. How has it affected the Church of today? The Great Schism has affected the Church of today because it was the main trigger in the formation of many different Christian faiths. The churches have become increasingly split along doctrinal, linguistic, liturgical, political, and geographical views.